Hello everyone, and today I would like to introduce about the old quarter brainstorm. And we have four parts. The first part is history and general information. The second is Asian house at no point 87 May Street. The third one is ancestor worship and relay information. And the fourth is about coffee, Vietnamese coffee. And we goes first. First, the present history of Thăng Long, Hanoi. And the imperial citadel of Thăng Long is complex of historic buildings associated with the history of Vietnam, located in center of Hanoi, Vietnam. Its construction began in 1010 and was complete in early 1011 under the regime of Emperor Lý Thái Tổ of the Lý dynasty. Most of existing structure is dated to the extensive reconstruction of the old imperial citadel ordered by Zalong in 1805, but the citadel, except for the north gate and the flag tower, was largely demolished by the French to allow more land for office and barracks. And second, we go to answer the question, when and how was the old quarter first established? And the residential and commercial area that is not the now that is now the old quarter came to be during the Li and Chen dynasties and was located east of the imperial citadel of Thăng Long and along the Red River. During the Lê dynasty, scholar Nguyễn Trái already mentioned some of the areas, each specialized in one particular trade. It was then surrounded by a defensive wall with several gates. During the Lê dynasty, the area included several lakes and wetlands, the largest of which was Thái Cực Lake. This lake, as well as Tô Lịch River, were connected with Hoàn Kiếm Lake and the Red River. Near the end of the 19th century, these lakes and rivers became isolated from each other. During Li Chen dynasty, many people from the surrounding migrate to the city and settled in what is now the old quarter, creating the densest urban area of the city. The late dynasty period saw an additional influx of Chinese immigrants who arrived to trade, create several Chinese neighborhoods, which served until mass explosion of ethnic Chinese from Vietnam in the late 1970s. And during the French colonial period, the old quarter underwent partial rebuilding. Two small markets were demolished to beg for Dong Xuân Market, and a tramway was constructed through the quarter. Many French and Indian businessmen settled in area conduct business. Today, area remains the commer- commercial heart of Hanoi. And the most famous trait of Old Choir art is areas dedicated to one specified trait or God. Um, craftsmen from village around the city used to gather in one area of their guide to sell their wares to merchants. The crafts or guilds of each area gave the name to the street of the choir. So that's most street acquired names starting with Hang, such as Hang Che Street, Bamboo Street, and Hang Dong Street. All is called Copperware Street. Several of the streets are still specialized in the trade that gave them their names. Others still specialize in one specific trade, but a different one from their traditional specialty, specialty, such as Hangbom Street, like Sale Street, which has become dominated by Vietnamese cakes and candy. The old quarters has been shown by researchers using the quantitative social anthropology approach to have exhibit Hanoi's cultural evolutions during the first decades of 20th century. And about the development of old quarter in different periods. The first Hanoi's old quarter has evolved over 1,000 years from a swampy cluster of crabs village into bustling commercial hubs. Preserving it is layout to house architecture across dynastic, colonial, and modern eras. The development of the old quarters marked by four major history phases. The first is origin and the God era from 11th century to 18th century. The district grew stem from 1010 when Emperor Li Taitou moved the capital to Tanglong. Artisans and merchants from rural village gathered around the royal citadel and Hoàn Kiếm Lake. By the third, 13th and 14th centuries, the famous god system took shape, and streets were dedicated to single trade, giving rise to 36 streets were street name prefix with Hang. Hang Bạc for silver, Hang Gai for silk, or indicated the specific commodity sold there. The second is French colonial period, late 19th century and in the mid of 20th century. When the French established control over Indochina, they laid out a new administrative quarter to the south, but largely left the old quarter layout intact. The French introduced modern infrastructure and new architecture style. Consequently, many houses were updated or constructed with neoclassical and Art Deco facades while maintaining the deep tube house structure. The third is the post-Ra and reunification era from 1919 and 54 to 1930s and 86. During during the mid to late 20th century, the old quarter faced rapid populations growth as government subsidized families were housed in the area. This led to a division of luxury home into multi-family dwellings. The physical maintenance of older structure was often neglected during these decades of economic hardship, but fundamental street level commercial and communities where it remain vibrant. The fourth is modern era and heritage preservation from 1986 to now. Following the economic reform in 1986, the old quarter became a highly dynamic center for trade, tourism, and service. Recognizing its historical value, and the Vietnamese Ministry of Constructor formally the district official boundaries in 1995, bordered by Hàng Đậu to the north, Phùng Hưng to the west, Hàng Bông and Hàng Gai to the south, and Trần Quang Khải to the east. Many heritage properties, such as Accent House at 87, may have been restored to serve as cultural museum. Today, while the architecture footprints are heavily protected by municipal UNESCO pact conserve standard, the area is continuously adapting to global tourism and digital commerce, balancing its ancient charm with modern economic demands. And next we go to answer the question: how were the ancient street in Old Quarter established? The most heritage Old Quarter is area dedicated to one specific street or guide. Craftsmen from village around city used to gather in one area the guide to sell wares to merchants, and the craft or gods of which area gave the name to the street of the quarter, so that most street acquire names starting with Hàng, such like Hàng Tre or Hàng Dong. Several of the streets still specialize in the trade that gave them names. Others still specialize in one specific trade, but different from the traditional specialties such as Hàng Buồm or more. And what is the meanings of street names in Old Quarter? Like up until the late 17th says, Hanoi's Old Quarter is almost new name as has been for the latest century and was the subject of many talented artists. Among them was artist Bùi Xuân Phải with his streets of five paintings the popularity of which had spread to other countries. At the time, trams ran to the Hoàn Kiếm Lake area through hàng đào, hàng ngang, hàng đường, Đồng Xuân Market, Quán Thánh, Thụy Khê to Bưởi. People from the suburbs or center areas mostly took the tram to go to the old quarter. The old Hanoi was quite city, not as proud but bustling as of today. Traffic in the city was also sparse. People mostly used bicycle, took a bus or mentioned above a tram. And this what is more interesting than sitting on wooden bench of the tram, hearing all those tinkling sounds every time the tram passed by across the street, or a crowd group of people while seeing the street through the windows. So we come to the second part. Asian house at no point 87 Man-made Street. First, we will talk about the present, the house history, and usage in different periods. Man-made Asian house built in late 19th century is representative example of the traditional domestic architecture once common in Hanoi's old quarter. Originally home to trading family, it reflects the everyday lifestyle or urban residents during period of active commercial growth. After careful restoration in late 1990s, the house has been preserved as a heritage site, allow visitors to observe an authentic living environment from Hanoi past. And how the man-made Asian house was used through different periods. Originally built in late 19th century, 77 man-made functioned as a traditional matron's home typical of Hanoi's old quarter. And the front section served as a small shop where the family contract trade, while the deeper interior space were reserved for daily living, cooking, and worship. And over the decades, several generations live under the same roof, and the interior layout evolved to meet their need throughout the essential structure remained intact. By the late 20th century, the house has deteriorated significantly, prompting a major restoration in 1998 under a cooperation program between the city of Hanoi and the city of Toulouse, France. Since then, the building has been preserved as a heritage house rather than private residence, offering the public an authentic glimpse into the lifestyle and domestic arrangement of Hanoi traditional urban family. So we will answer about the present, the house architecture theater, to present the information really you should answer really. Architecture feature blending Vietnamese and French influence. The architectures of 87 Man-made is rooted primarily in traditional Vietnamese urban house design, yet its subtlety incorporates certain material and details that become common during the late 19th and early 20th century. Vietnamese characteristics are dominant. A wooden structure frame, tile roof sloping towards tinted courtyard, or sense of rooms arranged along a central axis, and early separate space for commerce, living, workshop, and reserve. Revised function. Completing this are modest French period influence, visible in the use of cement and plaster and select structure elements. Uh, mm, and select structure elements, partner floor tiles on the ground level, and some decorative details and balustrade made with modern techniques introduced during the colonial era. Together, these spheres illustrate how traditional Vietnamese architecture adapts to new material and urban conditions while preserving its essential spatial origination and cultural identity. And why does the house have tube shape? Why are the houses in Old Quarter very narrow? And the narrow front elongate structure of the house reflect the spatial logic of Vietnam's traditional trading street rather than anything single historical event. In Old Quarter, the land was care scarce and highly valued, especially along commercial street wherever marriage was important for business. And the question is, what are the French architecture details in Asian house? Complementing these are modest French period influence, visible in the use of cement and plaster in select structural elements, partnered for tiles once the ground level, and some decorative details and balustrade made with modern techniques introduced during the colonial era. Together, this video illustrate how traditional Vietnam's architecture adapt to new material and urban conditions while preserving its essential spatial organiz- organization and cultural identity. So, what are the traditional Vietnamese architectural details in Asian house? Vietnamese characters are dominant. A wooden structural frame, tile roof sloping toward internal courtyards, and sense of rooms arranged along a central axis, and clearly separate space for commerce, living, worship, and service function. And present the and now I will present the significance of Vietnamese traditional kitchen and family meals. A Vietnamese family meals is not just about eating. Like it is a daily ritual that brings people together, foster respect, and strengthens family bonds. The traditional meal typically includes rice, several side dishes, soup, and dipping sauce. Each dish is placed the center of a table and shared by everyone, a practice that reflects the communal spirit of Vietnamese society. Uh, and I will tell you about the meaning of the door sill or bộ cửa. In Asian Vietnamese architecture and the traditional tips house of the old choir, the door themselves is both practical physical barrier and a profound cultural symbol construct intentionally high. And now we are going to the part three, the third part, ancestral worship and relate information. Now I will present the history, tradition, and the significance of the ancestor worship in Vietnamese culture. Like in Vietnam, ancestor worship is not merely a religion. It is the bedrock and entire culture, predating with the widespread adoption of but of Buddhism and Confucianism. Root in Asian concept of filial piety, ancestor worship in Vietnam is found on the belief that this case continue to exist and the perilous spiritual realm and maintain a protective interest in the affairs of the living descendants. Every Vietnamese home typically features an ancestor altar sent to the practice of ancestor worship in Vietnam. This altar is a place of reverence and remembrance, usually located in the prominence, respect, and area house. The altar serves as a connection point linking to living with this gate relative and forming a key elements of Vietnamese ancestor worship. And now this is about the theory of five elements and how Vietnamese people apply to family altars. In Vietnam folk culture, few philosophical systems are as influential or as deeply woven into everyday life as the five elements known traditionally as ngũ hành. Far more than symbolic model, five elements in Vietnam folk culture are understood as forces of nature that shape the universe, the govern human destiny, and maintain balance between physical and spiritual worlds. And we have a meaning of offering one the altar. Offering one atolls symbolize reversion, graduate, and the continuity of life to create a spiritual bridge through significant, specific sensory items like water, brews, and incense, representing birthday, natural harmony, and the connection between the earthly and the divine. Uh, so why do Vietnamese burn water paper is good or about it is good or is it bad? Vietnamese burn water paper or bang ma a symbolic ritual to provide their ancestor and wandering spirit with material goods in afterlife. Rooted in traditional ancestor worship, the practice is driven by culture, um, virtuous or filial piety, and the belief that life continues beyond death. And about the Vietnamese coffee, it is a four part and the finally parts today. Um, History of coffee. The history of coffee has have a bit delicious mystery. We don't have official documentations to confirm exactly, but people who discovered coffee trees was for the first time, or who invent coffee as the beverage beverage we know today. However, we do have colorful legend we can use the piece together, rich tapestry of coffee history and follow coffee journey across the globe.